The apartment smelled faintly of pine from the tiny Christmas tree I'd set up by the window. My silk blouse brushed against my wrists as I leaned over the counter, scrolling through emails I'd promised myself I'd ignore after 7 p.m. A soft chime sounded, a video notification. It was from my brother Jason. I hesitated, thumb hovering, remembering Dad's message from this morning. Just a small Christmas this year, no room for extras. His words had always carried weight, the kind that lingered in the chest like cold metal. I had learned long ago that no room for extras usually meant I wasn't part of the plan. Curiosity won. I tapped the play button. The video showed Jason laughing, wrapped around his husband, Daniel, as they decorated a massive tree, the camera panning over a living room lit with twinkling lights, stockings, and laughter. Their joy was contagious, but my chest tightened. A mix of emotions hit me: resentment, longing, and a strange sense of irony. Here I was, too busy with work and obligations, while they had built a warm, extravagant Christmas without a single thought of exclusion. And yet, deep down, I realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't powerless anymore. Not like I used to be. I took a deep breath, letting the hum of the city below seep into me, and I knew, this year, I was rewriting the rules. It was December, 5 years ago, and the living room was already crowded with holiday cheer. I had just returned from my first year at college, eager to share my excitement about a scholarship I had won. But the moment I stepped in, I felt it, the familiar wall of parental judgment. Just a small Christmas this year, Sam, Dad said, setting down the stack of boxes he'd bought for essential family members only. His eyes didn't meet mine. No room for extras. Extras. The word stung. I glanced at my younger brother, Jason, who shrugged and avoided my gaze. Even then, I understood it wasn't about the space or the money. It was about me. My accomplishments, my choices, the very way I existed outside their narrow expectations. My hands shook as I clutched the small wooden snow globe my grandmother had given me that morning. Always believe in yourself, Samantha. Even if no one else does. Her voice echoed in my mind. I had repeated those words under my breath countless times since. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat by the window, staring at the dim glow of streetlights, feeling the lump in my throat grow. Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I remembered my grandmother's advice, that sometimes independence came from walking away before anyone gave you permission to succeed. I packed a small bag, not knowing where life would take me, only knowing that I couldn't stay in a house where my dreams were considered extras. The next morning, I left before Dad could notice, leaving a note that said, simply, "I'm finding my own way. Merry Christmas." That night marked the start of everything. The sting of rejection became the fuel I needed to prove to myself, not them, that I could build a life of my own choosing. It was the first step toward carving out space in a world that often seemed unwilling to make room for someone like me. And as I closed the door behind me, the snow globe in my hand catching the first light of dawn, I realized something profound. Sometimes the smallest Christmases leave the biggest openings for new beginnings. The first few months were brutal. My tiny apartment smelled of old books and instant coffee, and the hum of the radiator at night kept me awake as I wrestled with self-doubt. Every rejection email from potential clients felt like a personal failure, yet I held on to my grandmother's words. Even if no one else does, you must believe in yourself. I started small, freelance writing for obscure online magazines, editing manuscripts for first-time authors, anything that kept the lights on and my dreams alive. Slowly, my confidence grew, each completed project adding weight to the invisible armor I was building around my ambition. Then I met Margaret, a seasoned editor at a boutique publishing house. She saw something in me that I hadn't recognized in myself. "You have a voice," she said over coffee one chilly morning. "And not just any voice, a voice people will listen to. Don't waste it waiting for permission." Her encouragement felt like a key turning in a lock I didn't realize existed. Long nights became my allies. I'd sit at my desk, curling my hands around a mug of coffee as I typed away until the sun rose, editing, rewriting, and learning the business from scratch. I battled self-doubt, but also learned resilience. I learned to pitch myself boldly, to network with poise, to refuse work that didn't align with my standards. Every small win, my first big client, my first freelance paycheck large enough to save, became a proof point that I was capable. By the second year, I had launched my own boutique content agency, keeping it quiet from my family. My Instagram and LinkedIn profiles hinted at modest achievements, but nothing hinted at the true scale of my work. Contracts with major brands, private clients who trusted me implicitly, and a growing reputation in the industry. Even my brother Jason had no idea. When he called to catch up, I would talk about my projects casually, carefully omitting details of the contracts and revenue that would have shocked him. It wasn't arrogance. It was a quiet, simmering satisfaction. I was finally thriving on my terms, living proof that I didn't need anyone's permission to exist fully. And yet, beneath every success, a part of me longed for the simple warmth of the holidays, the laughter, the shared joy I had missed out on. I'd tell myself that someday things would align differently, that someday I would show them, not with anger, but with the undeniable weight of my accomplishments, that I had made room for myself when no one else would. The snow globe from my grandmother still sat on my desk, a reminder that even small symbols could carry enormous power. It had become more than a gift. It was my talisman, my proof that belief in oneself could outlast rejection, distance, and doubt. Christmas Eve arrived, and I found myself standing outside Dad's house, the familiar red brick facade glowing in the soft evening light. I had debated all day whether to come, whether to risk the sting of old judgment. But then I remembered Jason's video, and a quiet resolve settled in me. Tonight, they were going to see the real me. I rang the doorbell, my heart racing not from fear, but anticipation. Dad opened the door, eyebrows raised. "Sam? What? Why?" His words trailed off. I stepped inside, the scent of pine, cinnamon, and roasted turkey wrapping around me like a memory I hadn't known I'd missed. "Hey," I said, voice calm but confident. "Merry Christmas." Jason appeared behind him, a mixture of surprise and guilt on his face. "Sam, you came?" I smiled faintly, letting the silence stretch, letting them take in my presence. My tailored coat, the subtle shimmer of the silk scarf around my neck, the aura of someone who had carved her own life, every detail intentional. "Where have you been?" Dad asked finally, his voice a notch softer, as if he were beginning to sense he had underestimated me. I gestured toward the living room. "Come on, I'll show you." Inside, I unveiled my gift, a sleek digital frame looping images and videos of my work, articles published in national magazines, projects for top-tier clients, snippets of my content agency's campaigns, and private celebrations of milestones I'd quietly achieved. Each image told a story of resilience, independence, and triumph. Dad's mouth fell open. Jason's jaw tightened, and even my mother, who had been quietly observing, could not hide her astonishment. All this?" Dad whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. "But I thought." "I know what you thought," I interrupted gently. "You thought I was just another extra in the family, someone who would quietly fade into the background. But I found my own space, Dad. I built it with late nights, sacrifices, and a lot of stubbornness. And it's mine." I paused, letting my words sink in. They were silent, the weight of my accomplishments pressing against their assumptions. Then I added, with a touch of humor to soften the tension, "Even the snow globe my grandmother gave me is still here. She said I had to believe in myself, and I did. I really did." Jason swallowed hard. "Sam, I had no idea." "It wasn't about hiding from you," I said. "It was about proving to myself that I could thrive, that I could turn no room for extras into my own stage." Dad's face shifted, disbelief, shame, and then, slowly, pride. We didn't know. I let them breathe in the moment. My presence, my achievements, my voice. Every ounce of who I had become was the statement. No words could have made them understand faster than the reality they were now seeing. For the first time in years, I felt the warmth of acknowledgement, not given freely, but earned. And in that quiet tension, I realized I had become the extra no one expected, but the one everyone could not ignore. The room was quiet, the glow of Christmas lights reflecting off the polished surfaces of Dad's living room. I stood tall, letting the moment stretch, feeling the subtle shift in energy. For the first time, I wasn't just the daughter who had been told no room for extras. Tonight, I held the room, and with it, the power to set the terms. I came here tonight, I began, my voice steady but warm, not just to show you what I've achieved, but to make one thing clear: respect, honesty, and support need to be mutual from now on. Dad shifted uncomfortably, but I didn't waver. I will always love this family, but I'm done being dismissed or treated as an afterthought. If we're going to celebrate together, there are some things that need to change. I turned to Jason first. You've always had your own path, and I admire that. But you've been hiding your happiness too, letting fear of judgment control your life. I want you to live openly, unapologetically, without guilt. Jason nodded, eyes glistening. I want that too, Sam. Then I addressed Dad. You need to understand that the old ways of limiting, controlling, and assuming I'll follow your rules no longer work. If we're going to celebrate as a family, you need to accept me fully. Accomplishments, choices, and all. No judgment. No small Christmases, no limitations on love or inclusion. Mom shifted beside him, finally speaking. I didn't realize we had held you back. I see it now. I smiled softly, mixing firmness with compassion. That's why I'm here. Love can grow, but only if it's paired with respect. Each of us needs to nurture our own growth, let go of toxic habits, and support each other instead of holding back. There was a pause. The room felt charged, but in a good way, like snow settling quietly after a storm. And one more thing, I added, my tone lighter but deliberate. I'm willing to help make this holiday special for all of us, but only under these conditions: honesty, open communication, and space for each person to shine, not just survive. If we commit to that, I promise it will be the best Christmas we've ever had. Dad's eyes softened, and I caught a glimmer of pride in his expression. Jason reached over, squeezing my hand. We'll do it. We'll try. For you. For all of us. I looked around the room, feeling the subtle but undeniable power of this moment. I had shifted the dynamics without anger, without confrontation, simply by owning my life, my choices, and my voice. For the first time, I realized that empowerment wasn't about proving them wrong, it was about living fully and letting them catch up. Tonight, I wasn't just a daughter. I was a force of change, and the family that had once limited me now had the chance to grow alongside me. Christmas morning arrived with soft sunlight spilling through the windows. The house was alive with laughter, the smell of cinnamon and pine mingling in the air. For the first time in years, I felt fully present, not just as an observer, but as an active part of this family on my terms. Dad moved around the kitchen, careful to follow my suggestions for decorations and gifts, a small smile tugging at his lips. Jason and Daniel exchanged quiet glances, unpacking a box of ornaments together, their hands brushing occasionally, comfortable and unafraid. Mom hummed a familiar carol, her eyes occasionally meeting mine, an unspoken acknowledgement of what had changed. I held the snow globe for my grandmother, its tiny figures spinning under the glass. I had carried it through years of doubt, rejection, and late nights building my own life. Today, it felt heavier, not with burden but with meaning. It was a reminder that the smallest gifts, the quietest acts of belief, could create a life far larger than anyone imagined. We ate, we laughed, we shared stories, some old, some new, and the air was warm with connection. I realized that the power I had gained wasn't just about my success. It was about transforming the patterns that had limited us for so long. We were no longer just surviving a holiday. We were celebrating it together, openly and honestly. Later, as I stepped to the window, watching snowflakes drift lazily onto the street below, I reflected on the journey. The hurt of exclusion, the sting of judgment, the sleepless nights of forging my own path, They had all shaped the woman I had become. And I understood something profound. True empowerment wasn't just achieving success or proving others wrong. It was knowing your worth, honoring it, and holding space for others to grow alongside you. I whispered to myself, a smile curling my lips, no more small Christmases, no more living in the shadows. I make my own room, and anyone who matters is welcome to share it. That line, soft yet resolute, felt like the perfect closure, a gentle but unwavering voiceover for the life I had claimed, the family I had guided toward growth, and the woman I had become. Strong, independent, compassionate, fully, unapologetically me. And in that moment, as the snow continued to fall and the house buzzed with newfound warmth, I knew I had finally come home. Not just to a place, but to myself.